My name is Rufus Hound, and welcome to My Teenage Diary, the show where we invite brave adults to dust off their tear-stained teenage ramblings and read out their old diaries in public for the first time. Can they recognise themselves when they look back? Have they remained true to their youthful ideals? My guest tonight is an acclaimed writer, broadcaster, quiz show host and poker champion. That's what she's like now, but we're about to find out what she was like way back then. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Victoria Coren. So, Victoria, when did you start keeping a diary and why?
Within minutes of birth.
Yes.
I was an absolute born hack. Heaven forbid there would be a thought unexpressed or indeed unsold.
So, it's the late 80s where we start. The Conservatives under Margaret Thatcher are in their third term in power, and the country is dealing with boom and bust as we head into recession. But what is Victoria Coren up to?
Well, obviously what I'm doing is writing a column for the Daily Telegraph. From the age of about 11, I used to send off short stories under assumed names, because that's what Jo March did in Little Women. And I got a couple of them published, these short stories. And then the Daily Telegraph had a competition. They wanted a teenage columnist. And
This was the Telegraph trying to engage with their youth, was it?
Exactly so. The funny thing is, though, looking back at the diaries, I realise the stuff I wrote in my diaries is what they actually wanted. They didn't get it. I wanted to be some kind of old-fashioned literary humorist. What they wanted was the kind of things I wrote in my diaries about who I fancied and why I was furious with my mum. But I never did that in the paper. I tried to write jokes. It was terrible.
And was it that you were trying to appear older rather than give them the teen anxiety? You wanted to appear worldly wise?
No, it was because I didn't really understand what they wanted from me. I didn't really grasp the idea was just for parents to read the paper and see what their teenagers were thinking. I thought, get me, I'm a professional writer.
Yeah.
I'm going to do beautiful sentences and opinions.
Yeah.
Not realising nobody gave a stuff about that.
Yeah. Tell us about your training bra.
Well, I got many letters saying that sort of thing from... from the old colonels. But the other thing was I didn't really have that kind of life. I'm sure they wanted stories about taking drugs and getting drunk and having sex, but the kind of teenager who would be doing that wouldn't be writing a column for the Daily Telegraph.
They were too stoned to put pen to paper. Do you still have the diary?
There's a lot of diaries. There's a sort of obsessive-compulsive collection of about 30 identical diaries with the dates typed and stamped on the front.
And would you describe them?
They're very neat. They're very regimented. I think I must have thought I was Peter Mandelson or something. These will be important for posterity.
And did you go to any great lengths to stop them being read?
I don't think anyone wanted to read them. I think people just wanted me to shut up. I was already in the paper every week. I don't think anyone was particularly looking under the bed. What else can we hear from her?
Do you still keep a diary?
I don't anymore. I finally figured out that if writing's your job, it's not the thing to do as a hobby.
Right. So let's have a look at the sort of things you were writing about. And we start with your first entry, please.
Yes, this is from January the 6th. The Christmas tree came down today. Christmas was good. Grandma gave me a teas made. Mummy and Daddy gave me some slippers, some books, and 4 albums by Don McLean, George Harrison, Carly Simon, and Bruce Willis. Giles gave me a cuddly penguin, which I've named Hef, after Hugh Hefner. Career-wise, everything is going well. I went on loose ends and talked about Christmas. In spite of last year's resolutions, I didn't go out on New Year's Eve. I just stayed in. At midnight, I went and sat on the doorstep. It's a cliché to be lonely on New Year's Eve because everyone else is out having fun. I thought about all the people who were feeling lonely because they thought everyone else was having fun, so that was fine. I was in a community with them, even if we weren't all in the same room.
So let's just have a little look at those Christmas presents. A teas made and some slippers.
I mean, you couldn't really pick less cool things.
And a cuddly penguin called Hef after Hugh Hefner.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, in comes the porn from left field.
Yeah.
Into this dusty little teenage life of slippers and a teas made. My dad used to write for Playboy. He wrote the kind of articles that people could tell their wives they were buying the magazine for.
Yes, yeah.
Stuff about cars that nobody ever read.
Or as male listeners will know it, the justification.
Precisely so. And, he had a large stack of the justifications in the cupboard in his study, which my brother and I used to take turns to sneak in and read. So I probably had, at the age of about sort of 13, 14, broader awareness of human biological behaviour than perhaps was normal.
And you mentioned here career-wise. I mean, this sounds all quite scary. You're 14 with a career. Do you already have a life plan by this stage?
No, but the odd thing is I don't seem to think it's interesting. That's just one line. Generally, I found, looking back through my diaries, I go on and on and on about boys and my family. Then you get the odd one line. Went on Wogan with William Hague and Jason Donovan. Anyway, I'm going to Grandma's for tea. There's no detail.
Yeah.
Clearly at that age, I don't find anything unusual or interesting about it. I was just taking it for granted.
Yeah. Despite the fact that in many ways you're living an atypical teenage life, you're still going through typical teenage problems, sitting alone on the doorstep at New Year's Eve, but you're dealing with them in your own way. Do you feel that you are mature beyond your years?
Yeah, I thought I was. I mean, I read that bit back about we're all in a community in different rooms. Nice try, you friendless geek. I said... I had nowhere to go. Nobody asked me if I wanted to go to a party.
You didn't spend the rest of your adolescence alone, though, did you?
No, I didn't. I've actually got a diary entry about my first date. So I suppose yesterday was my first date, in the sense of someone asking me out on a date and me going. I met Andy at 7:30 at Finchley Road tube station. I wore a black miniskirt and a red and grey jumper. I was worried a mini might be a bit too encouraging, but with my legs that isn't really the case. He was taller than I remembered and quite ugly. But that's lucky, really. If my first date was with someone I fancied a lot, I would have been so nervous. But I was worried he might try and get off with me. I made a wish on an eyelash that he wouldn't try. We went to the pub and he had a beer and I had a sweet white wine. He said I should get my hair cut because it makes me look like a little girl. And then he said, but you are a little girl. He's already done his A-levels. At the end, we went to the tube and he kissed me on my nose. I don't know if he was aiming for my nose. But in the pub, he told me his true love lives in Durham, so I don't know if he likes me all that much.
I mean, you're in pubs having wine, wearing a miniskirt, going out with A-level aged boys. Would you be happy if your daughter behaved like that?
I think my parents were desperate for me to behave like that, rather than sitting in my room writing these weird articles. You know, in my memory, I was just this idiot, this schoolgirl in a miniskirt going, what's alcohol? I suppose wine? But actually, I look back and think, he wasn't exactly Cary Grant.
No. Well, he's going out with somebody 4 years his junior, so he's probably worked his way through the other years at school. I mean, he described you as a little girl. Did that annoy you? There you were, trying to be the very embodiment of young female sophistication.
I think I was probably relieved, though, because my feelings about boys were very mixed. I wanted to have a boyfriend, but I didn't want to have to kiss or touch any boys. So the idea that he thought I was a child was quite reassuring.
Now, this Andy character, he's in love with a girl from Durham, but did he ever phone again?
According to my diary, no. This is Thursday, March 10th. Well, Andy never phoned again. That's okay, but it's a bit annoying because I might have a party in the summer and it would be useful to invite him because he's a boy. I only know 10 boys, and Giles's friends don't really count. If there were loads of girls and only 3 boys, it would be so embarrassing. Maybe I won't have a party. I had a letter from Jonathan Cape Publishers saying I write like a clear mountain stream and they'll pay me £3,000 to write a novel. I thought the bit about the mountain stream was silly. If I don't have a party, then I don't have to do any dancing, which would be good.
I mean, it sounds like you're going to have a party with loads of girls and only 3 boys, which you think would be embarrassing.
No, but that's the great thing when you're a kid, isn't it? Especially if you're at a single-sex school. Getting the numbers right, to have a social gathering where you can't muster up enough of the opposite sex is the greatest social humiliation. I never had a party, by the way. I mean, not at any stage throughout my teenage years or now.
Right. Why?
Because of that, because I didn't know any boys and I thought it would be embarrassing, and because I thought there might have to be dancing. You wouldn't understand this. You, the comic relief dance champion, you wouldn't understand. It is, I would go to any lengths to avoid dancing in public. So it was another example of sort of mixed feelings. I wanted to have those things without any of it actually happening.
Yes.
You know, I used to make lists for this imaginary party I never had. Oh, now there's that boy that lives round the corner in Farm Avenue. He looks about my age. If I could somehow find an excuse to say hello to him at the post box, then he'd be a boy I know. It was like that, calculations.
Yeah.
Who could you invite?
But then did you ever action any of it?
Of course not.
No, these were just, like, thought experiments.
Yeah, sort of a fantasy about being a different kind of teenager with sort of a social life and sex appeal.
And like, just lost in this entry is that you were offered £3 to write a novel. I wouldn't be offered that now. And yet, because you don't like the way they've asked, this is poo-pooed.
No, it wasn't. It was poo-pooed. It was that... I mean, that's good in a way. I'm glad I didn't think at that age I'll do it in order to have the money. Because that, you don't need money at that age. And I was earning £50 a week writing for The Telegraph, so I was already rich beyond imagining.
Yeah.
And I didn't really think I could write a novel. And I did think the letter was a bit creepy.
Right.
It didn't help that my brother rolled on the floor laughing and shouting, "You don't write like a clear mountain stream, and if you did, it would be rubbish anyway."
So you make the decision you're not going to write the novel?
Yes, this is what I've written. This is about a couple of months later, May 2nd. I'm not going to write a novel because it's too difficult, but I'm going to turn my Telegraph columns into a book. Grandma came for lunch yesterday. I love Grandma, but she's so deaf, and I wish she wouldn't keep pinching my cheeks. It actually hurts. Jess's uncle Mark asked me out on a date. It's okay, he's not an old uncle. Well, not really old. I think he might be 20, so he's quite old. I don't think I fancy him, but I really ought to go out with someone. He said we should go and see Wall Street at the cinema. We walked up to the bus stop, and Mark asked if I had any pets. I didn't think that was a brilliant question. But it was sweet, because it made me think he had probably planned some questions to ask, like when I had to interview Lord Snowdon. But I didn't ask Lord Snowdon if he had any pets. We went to Pizza Express and John, the waiter, was there. When Mark went to the toilet, John said, "I recognised your voice, but your body has changed. You're not a little girl anymore." That made me sad. I don't think I'll ever lose weight. I have zilch self-control. I had a pizza anyway. Mark paid for the film and the pizza, which I thought was very nice, not like Andy, who said it was important we pay half each because of politics. He walked me home and kissed me goodbye on the cheek, but I don't think I'm in love with him.
This is classic teenage misinterpretation. John leans in and says, "I recognise your voice, but your body has changed. You're not a little girl anymore." And you think, he's calling me fat.
Yeah, it was only looking back last week, 100 years later, that I realised quite how creepy that is.
This is a man who's sort of walking up when your actual date's gone to the loo.
Yeah, no, he'd given me his phone number once, about a year before, that waiter. He'd slipped me his phone number and said, "Call me." I never did call him. God, I even remember, I can see it written down on the paper now. It started 794. Anyway, I might ring him later. But here's the weird thing. He'd given me the phone number and said to call. I never had. Now, a year later, he says, "Your body's changed, you're not a little girl anymore." So he did think I looked like a little girl when he gave me the number and wanted me to ring.
Yeah. So, Mark, was he your ideal man?
No, nobody was my ideal man, apart from a fantasy one, I discover. June 30th, I've written today, I had a vision of my future husband. It was like a hallucination or an epiphany. He was wearing a yellow waistcoat and a brown corduroy shirt. I think I must have just seen Giles Brandreth on TV. He had brown hair and he was quirky. I think in my mind he was someone I met at university, and he was very intelligent, but maybe he didn't really fit in and we understood each other, but nobody else did, and we got married. Which is probably nothing like how it will actually be. I'm getting paranoid I'll never meet anyone I want to marry anyway. But I am going to be a judge in a competition for charity. The other judges are Lloyd Hunnigan, Bob Holness and Mel and Kim. The exciting thing is that there's going to be a press day at London Zoo, so maybe I can play with the animals. But it's on a school day, so I hope I don't get in trouble.
I mean, this is just an odd existence, isn't it? You're sort of racked with these fantasy men, and then judging a national competition launched at London Zoo with Lloyd Hunnigan, the man from Blockbusters and Mel and Kim.
In some ways, I think, though, it's classic puberty writing. Half my mind is thinking about getting married and men and being attracted to them, and the other half is thinking, I wonder if I could stroke the elephants when I'm in there. Yeah. You know, that's about the zoo.
We should point out there is a separation.
It's
two different thoughts.
But you know what I mean? I'm sort of thinking about growing up, and I don't know why I'm so obsessed with marriage, but those things, and also excited about going to the zoo.
You were technically at school.
I know, yeah, I bunked off school to do that. I mean, they must have absolutely hated me at school. Obviously, they did anyway, but the teachers must have just thought...
Why, obviously, they did anyway?
Well, they did anyway because I was that kind of kid, a sort of sulky, morose, friendless, geeky little kid who didn't want to dance or go to parties. But also, if you're that kind of kid, it's meant to be that the teachers like you. Not in my case, because I had all the girls thinking that I was really uncool and square, and then the teachers thinking, and then they said, oh, madam, missing geography to go to the zoo with Lloyd Hunnigan. You know, there was nowhere to run. School was hell.
You had friends, though, surely?
I had, you know, a couple of friends, but it would sort of wax and wane. Girls' schools are a bit like that. I hope everybody has that experience. I mean, I remember one girl I thought was my best friend. I read her diary once when she was in the bath, and it said, I hope Vicky leaves school soon, we all hate her. That was a happy experience.
Well, I mean, you were the kind of bitch who was reading people's diaries when they were in the bath.
As soon as it got to the age where everybody, it seemed to me, was an overnight sophisticate, and everybody suddenly was wearing glamorous clothes and dating and dancing, I suddenly just didn't know how to join in. So I just kind of skulked around at home.
Or went off on holiday.
All went off on holiday. Here is a diary entry from August the 3rd. We're on holiday in France, but without Giles. This is the first time he hasn't come on holiday. I miss him. But we had a big argument before we went away because he said I was short. There's another family with one child about my age, a boy, and my mum went over and talked to them and said maybe he and I could play tennis together. I was so embarrassed I wanted to kill myself. But he did smile at me across the dining room, and that was exciting. He's Dutch, which is a bit of a shame. I wonder if he thinks I'm fat. I'm definitely not going to wear a swimsuit.
So you've met another bloke. I think we can already guess where this is going.
Nowhere. August the 12th. It's the end of the holiday, and I'm writing this at a table at the Motorists' Restaurant on the Sea Link ferry to New Haven. I've just eaten a rather strange meal of herring, chopped carrot, and bright pink cake. It's like a meal designed for me to throw up over the edge of the ferry. I'm really sad the holiday's over. I can't believe I said it was bad that Stefan was Dutch. He's so lovely. Anyway, he's German. We've played tennis every day. We're about the same standard. One night he asked if I wanted to go to a disco, but I said no because there was bound to be dancing there. One day we walked into the village and he bought me a rope bracelet and a copy of Woman's Own. I think I must fancy him because I get jealous when he talks about his female friends. But if I was his wife, I think I would... I don't know why I'm so obsessed with being someone's wife, this tiny child. If I was his wife, I think I would be more jealous of his mother. He's totally crazy about his mother. He said to me today, she has lovely figure. Not for the fashion model, but for the mother. His mother is very fat. Maybe that's why he likes me. He's funny. I told him I went to a girls-only school, and he said, that is like the Middle Ages. But we didn't do any kissing. I have got a photo of him, and I will probably tell Jess that he's my boyfriend. If she wants to assume I got off with him, that's up to her. Stefan describes getting off with someone as becoming good friends in the corner. We might have kissed goodbye last night because we went swimming very late, but his parents came and sat there to make sure there was no funny business. It occurs to me that if I died, someone might read my diary, e.g. Giles, and I would be so embarrassed.
So, Stefan, then. He's bought you a copy of Women's Own from the village shop. I'm guessing they were all out of teas, maids and slippers.
I remember my teenage years as being an absolute devoid of boys, just no boys, none at my school. And, you know, I started playing poker at about 15, purely as an excuse to hang out with my brother's friends. But I look back and say, there's boys everywhere. It's just, I don't really understand. I don't know what it is you're meant to do. I seem to be going on dates and meeting boys, but never quite kissing them, not really wanting to, then feeling guilty that I didn't. It's not how I remembered it at all.
So, did you spend the rest of the year pining for your German sweetheart?
Well, I appear to have moved on by the 20th of August, which is only 8 days later. Well, I didn't get sick on the ferry, and I had a very nice birthday. Giles gave me a Tunisian coin and an EastEnders mug. Grandma gave me £25, and Grandpa gave me a card. By the way, last week I had lunch with Mark Booth from Century Hutchinson, who are going to publish my book of essays based on my Telegraph columns. He's quite old, 28, but young for a publisher, but he has gorgeous blue eyes, and I definitely am in love with him. This is what happens by September the 25th. Everyone, I write grumpily, everyone seems to have lost their virginity on holiday this summer. Literally everyone. I bet if I was thin, I'd have a boyfriend. But do I stop eating like a pig? No, I don't. My book is coming out in February, so I have to work quite hard on that. The publishers want to call it Victoria Coren's A to Z of Teenage Worries from A-levels to zits. But that's just stupid. I'm not worried about A-levels. They're about 100 years away. As for the zits, I can't see any point drawing attention to it.
So literally everyone has lost their virginity.
Yeah, everyone lost their virginity. A German boy bought me a copy of Woman's Own. That's my summer.
Throughout this, I mean, absolutely littered through, obviously, classic teenage girl anxieties about sort of look and body image and things like that. Is that something that you feel that you grew out of? Is it still something that...
Totally. That's the one thing that's completely changed. If I read my diaries now, I worry about the same things. I express myself in the same way. But that's the one thing I just don't care now. At the time, I was so obsessed with how do I lose weight and what do I do with my hair, and I just, thank goodness, didn't grow up into, as you can probably see, one of those women who care about those things.
Well, bloody good work. So does that mean then that your diary ends happily? Do you come out of this with the man of your dreams riding over the horizon, his brown corduroy shirt billowing in the wind?
I appear to get distracted by the joys of the print media. This is December 13th. The school newspaper went on sale today, and I'm so proud of it. We put it all together at my house 3 weeks ago. Everyone got on really well, even though we aren't friends at school. It was great. It was like communism. And the paper looks really good.
Sorry, this is from a Telegraph columnist.
Yeah. The paper looks really good. I've written this communist paper we produced. The paper looks really good. The headmistress says it's the best one ever. The best thing was going into the dining room in morning break, and it was totally silent except for everyone turning the pages. We could have sold far more than we printed. We're doing a joint play with the boys' school, Mother Courage, and I have to play a soldier, which I think is stupid when there are real boys in it. I look terrible in trousers. Now, that's something that I have terrible memories of, that play. But yes, I know that it looms large memories of the play because I had to play a recruiting officer, and there were boys in it. We'd never done a play with real boys before. And I was emotionally a late developer, physically not. And my opening line in this play, I had to walk up to two soldiers, played by actual boys, and say, "I like the look of these two, they've got massive chests." Which some people might say is a bad translation of the Brecht, but that was my opening line, which I had to say to two boys in front of the whole school and the boys' school.
Yeah.
And it's something I haven't quite recovered from. It got a big laugh every time.
I was going to say, I mean, there are worse ways of starting than with a big laugh.
Yeah, but this is a play about sort of war and dying children. It's not meant to start with a laugh.
But it does seem to me then that you've developed, you've got these boys coming to do the play at school, you're a bit of a performer. What was it, do you think, that stopped you just from sort of casting it all off and just giving it a go?
I appear to be giving it a go. Shall I read you this next thing from, this is May the 14th. "Oh my goodness, there's so much to say after a 6-week gap that this new Pilot razor point pen will probably run out. Chances are they paid me something to write that in my diary. Facts first. My book was finally published, and I've done lots of publicity. There was a gross picture of me in the Times. I went on loose ends, and I wasn't as bad as last time. So now I suppose people are reading it. Last week I met a boy at a party who said, 'Oh, are you Vicky Coren? We were all reading that thing about you in the Mail on Sunday and agreeing what a prat you were.' Oh well, it's done now. More to the point, in capitals, more to the point, and this is why I've been too busy to write in my diary. So we had a cast party for the play, and I got off with Peter. So now I've kissed 3 people. I feel like a bit of a slag. I was absolutely sure he wasn't going to ring me afterwards. But then on the Thursday after, he suddenly phoned, and we talked for ages, and he asked me out. So we went for dinner, and he paid, but I only had a salad in case he didn't have enough money. And then we went to Tower Bridge. And now we seem to be going out. We've seen a film and been for a walk in Richmond Park. I don't know what I expected from going out with someone, but actually it's not very exciting. For example, I was really looking forward to seeing him last Friday, but then we met up and I couldn't help thinking it might be more fun to just watch TV.
I mean, you get your picture in the Times, but your teenage self just goes, I look gross. Not, I'm in the ruddy Times.
But it's more that it only merited a sentence. I don't think I thought about it. What was it like to, whether to go on TV or to meet famous people or to be a girl that would go to a party and other people would know who you were because you'd been in the paper. I just don't seem to have found that at all interesting. Pages and pages and pages about this or that boy said this, I said that, which you could guess what that kind of thing would be like. And what was unusual to me, it just didn't seem worth mentioning. And I probably thought that's just a normal job.
Having read your diary today, what do you think you'd say to the young Victoria Coren?
I would probably say, boys don't know anything you don't know. They are also desperate, lonely and terrified. Everyone is. And I might say, if you can just hang on about 8 years, someone's going to invent internet poker. So that'll be fine.
So, normally people at this stage say things like, don't worry, it'll all be fine, chin up. But yours is more like, intellectually, don't worry, you're the same as everyone, and then you'll find something else where you can avoid actually talking to people in the flesh.
Oh, yes, of course, because... No, because I can't tell her it's all fine, not on her terms. I suppose the message would be more... I don't think that being happy in life is necessarily about achieving your goals, whether you decide you want to write a book or you want to get married. It's not about that. It's about learning to be happy with the way things are. If you worry that you're a bit fat, maybe the answer isn't to lose weight. It's to just deal with the fact that you are and be fine with it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to go back to my 13-year-old self and say, yes, well, it all worked out absolutely fine. You're going to have a little house and garden, 2 kids and a dog. It wasn't like that. But I could say... you're perfectly happy. The way it worked out is perfectly fine, and you've got a life that suits you very well.
We ask also at this point what you think your teenage self would say back to you.
I think she'd probably say, that really doesn't help. How am I going to drop 2 stone and find a boyfriend?
We play out on every show with the tune that you believe sums up your teenage years, so what have you chosen?
Right, now, lyrically, this doesn't sum up my life, but obviously I had to choose something off one of those terrible 4 albums that I got for Christmas. And
Please tell me it's Bruce Willis.
Even though I don't think I didn't consider Under the Boardwalk. But no, I decided to go, instead of going the comedy route, to pick a song by Don McLean, it's really a great song, and it seemed to go well with the idea of writing a diary. It's called Every Day.
Well, as we listen to that, ladies and gentlemen, Victoria Coren. My Teenage Diary is a Talkback Thames production for BBC Radio 4. It was presented by me, Rufus Hound, and starred guest Victoria Coren. The producer was Victoria Payne. Victoria Payne.